Lubomila, you're an award-winning entrepreneur of not only one, but at least two ESG platforms. Today, I'd like you to focus on PlanA for obvious reasons. Tell us about what drove you to found this company, and also for those that don't know PlanA, a bit about what you actually do.
My journey into sustainability and climate risk actually kicked off in 2016. I don't come from this topic from an educational and career perspective. I've been in investment banking, VC, fintech across Europe and Asia. And in 2016, I found myself in the face of climate change on a beach in Morocco. I ended up cleaning beaches instead of surfing for a week, and that kind of drove me to think that probably when I go back to London, where I was working at that time, I should be focusing my efforts on understanding what this whole thing is, how can I connect my life to that, and what was really human impact on our planet. Long story short, within a year, I had spent essentially all of my free time on learning about climate change, about the risks related to that for businesses, and came out with three particular outcomes. One was that businesses needed to be at the core of addressing climate change. There was a necessity for a collaborative approach. And finally, it was about science. It was about really deeply embedding science into the way we were building solutions. That kind of kicked off the beginning of PlanA. With these outcomes, I really had a clear idea that there was a target group, there was a problem that they needed to be solved, and there was also an economy that was missing this layer of analysis that essentially was skipping the climate risk assessment that can cost us a lot of money. That was 2017. Since then, we have built a few different products, and I would emphasize on two of them. One is a software as a service platform that essentially enables businesses to do carbon and ESG assessment and improvement with a very strong focus on the improvement side. We've seen so many platforms today that do a lot of data aggregation analysis. We do that, but we also have built a whole decarbonization team in-house, a ESG improvement in-house. And these are people that essentially work on adding constantly features that enable companies to think of their future in a more protected manner. And the second product that we built, which is kind of going to be reignited as, unfortunately, climate change unfolds, is a climate risk assessment algorithm that predicts where and how climate change will hit the hardest, with a strong focus on supply chain impacts and also infrastructure impacts.
So I would say you've been a front runner in this business way before it became fashionable, definitely way before HV was actually interested in. We've seen a lot of platforms today doing, from the outside world, something similar relating to it. What would you say to the audience differentiates you?
I always laugh that for PlanA, it feels like we're this dinosaur because we've been for 5 years on the space, and we've been also building communities around that, like the Green Tech Alliance, so we really know the different stakeholders within it. There's three particular things that make us different and also have allowed us to really attract hundreds of clients from all over the world across different industries. First is complex data processing. To make it less complex, this is all about being able to tap into the existing data points that a company has. This is essentially the idea that you really are sitting on so much data, not only financial, but just any kind of assessment of your suppliers, of your investments, and so on. What is missing for this data to be actually useful for this preparation for the future is this environmental, social, and governance layer. That's something we've been able to do, and for this we have a very strong team with big data experience and also even blockchain, just to drop a few maybe keywords. And on the second topic, it's about this improvement. We have been following science since day one. A quarter of the PlanA team is climate data scientists. And these are people that come from Potsdam Institute for Climate Research, Yale, MIT, and essentially...
Potsdam one was the one that won the was on the Nobel Prize team.
Yeah, that's the lead of decarbonization at PlanA. He's been part of the team that won for Potsdam Institute for Climate Change a Nobel Prize. And this is essentially the core of our work, because the data helps us to really understand what we need to focus on, what are the things we need to highlight, but then in order to get get the clients to change. Because ultimately, it's not about offsetting, it's not about carbon neutrality, it's really about how do we move to another level of the economy where we're more prepared for the future and more actually reducing our emissions on a daily basis with our activities, but without the need to be dependent on a consultant. You really need the infrastructure to know where to spend your efforts. And then the final element, which is kind of understandable for, I would say, many that live in Europe, is related to regulatory alliance. This whole ESG assessment and improvement, all of these topics actually became prominent because the EU in particular led the way of establishing a lot of frameworks for reporting. We've automated the process for that and also allowed for clients to know how they can improve, what kind of policies they need to be aware of, and so on.
Can I ask, because you've just named that, it sounds like a fairly labor-intense process with a lot of contractors, consultants, or am I mistaken? How do you sort of see that world, particularly on the client side? I guess particularly corporates and the industries that you cover don't have huge ESG teams of 20, 30 FTEs that need to work on that.
We like to keep it lean at PlanA and also believe that we should have a product-led mindset. Out of the 60 people that we have in the company, more than 3/4 are in product, tech, and science. And that has been a conscious decision since day one. Many companies in the space have chosen the consultant-first approach. We prefer to partner with the consultants.
Okay.
We know that if someone needs to implement a decarbonization strategy or they can do it, we need to be the tech partner and the infrastructure that actually processes the data, identifies the emission hotspots, the ESG improvement opportunities, and then lets the client go free, because ultimately we need to embed this mindset into the companies. It's not about just general outsourcing of sustainability. This is what got us into this problem. We really need to embed it in the way we do things.
And sort of lastly, or most importantly, for those that are not as close to the product itself, would you mind walking us through from, I don't know, RFP to finally seeing the CO2 footprint, to finally using, to finally decarbonization, the customer journey on the product side? How do you sort of see it as an example?
We have multiple layers of clients. We have the base clients that basically no-touch kind of use case. There, they just take off the shelf something, and then they do the data assessment. They get automatically suggestions on how they can improve, and they do the reporting. The only element where they potentially can be connected to our team is related to automating the data collection process. Where it gets kind of further complex is on the pro case. This is a private equity kind of client, like an Apex, one of the biggest private equities in the world that has taken their whole portfolio through our software. In this kind of case, what basically the process is, first of all, we understand what's the challenge, what's the ambition, and essentially then our modular platform gets to be adapted to the needs of the client. Not every single client wants to double down on the reporting efforts because maybe that's not applicable to them. Maybe they want to really dive deep into decarbonizing the emissions related to not only them, but their suppliers, investments, and so on. With this case, what we have is first understanding what they want to achieve, the data assessment process, where basically we understand what can be automated, and then the automation that lasts like between a few days up to, we've had cases where it's been like a month or two. And then after that, they get access to a platform that is not simply a dashboard. It's a place where they get to be taken through a journey to become sustainable. We have very complex clients like BMW, Société Générale, Vinci, industrial companies, big automotive, big financial institutions, and they need a different type of approach, which kind of leads me to the final case. This is the enterprise. For this kind of use cases, we have maybe an RFP, maybe we have some other types of engagements, but they essentially always lead to them having access to a platform within a few months that is fully aligned to their needs and only has like a customer success manager whenever it's needed, kind of a chat setup.
So financial services, automotive, mobility are sort of your key client base. Can you, in the last, maybe I switched that question because you already named them. In Series A, your SoftBank HV led the last Series A. What changed since that Series A that you did a couple of weeks ago? Particularly given you've been at COP as one of the only startups, if I may say so.
Yeah, it was really interesting to be at COP and speak. Also, as part of the official program, I had the honor to speak after Mark Carney, which is kind of obviously he was one of the stars of the event. What changed is actually, first of all, we were bombarded by requests, which is thanks to you as well, I guess, in the sense that HV brings a lot of leverage and credibility, and we're really honored to be working with you because if anyone's looking for investment, please call these guys. And honestly, it's been such a pleasure since day one. I think the main change has been in terms of course, like a lot of dealing with a lot of new demand. The second thing has been just kind of a level of engagement with our clients that basically now have felt totally comfortable to become advocates for us. The Series A demonstrates that we're credible. We have the KPIs. We also have enough team, enough like leverage in terms of our clients, and also complexity of the product because we don't do this consulting approach kind of thing. And that has really given the conviction to many to start, like we've had so many referrals as well. And then the final thing is just building now, I would say, a huge portfolio of success cases because one thing that I didn't mention is that on the reduction side, the main focus is really getting our clients to achieve up to 60% reduction, which is a big feat. And I think now we can speak with numbers, and the Series A also allowed us to amplify this in terms of the visibility of the message.
Makes sense. Thank you so much, Lubomila.
Thank you, Alex.